how do you make sure your content and SEO strategies stay high quality and human? Have you seen any pushback from using AI content and it being negative right now, or have you really adopted it and seen it work for you successfully?
Well, let me clarify what means to me, which is that the articles get indexed. And to me, that's the end of the story. My end goal is just to make sure my content gets indexed as much as possible, which means the content will be seen by the search engines and the LLMs. And who is writing the content has rarely mattered when it comes to getting it indexed.
Build backlinks to those content pieces or share it on social media to get it indexed and picked up on Twitter. Usually gets picked up pretty quick, or share it in Google Docs or Google Sheets. That way they could just see it in multiple places along with the sitemap, the XML and the static sitemap.
All right, guys, welcome to another episode of SEO On-Air. Excited to have two guests with us today. We're going to do a short intro so that all our listeners know who you are. And then we'll dive right into the questions and pick your brains so you can enlighten us a bit. Starting off, we'll give a quick intro to Brandon Leibowitz, founder of SEO Optimizers for nearly 2 decades of hands-on SEO content and link building experience, helping businesses grow organically. And I think you said specifically you work a lot in the local and small medium business realm. So I appreciate you being here, Brandon. Thanks for joining us. And to change things up a bit, we, instead of an agency owner today, we actually have the founder of Tork Media, Adam Torkildson. A large digital publishing network is really the background or the company that you're running right now, used by agencies for SEO and content outreach with strong background in business operations and revenue growth, and I think some consulting for entrepreneurs as well. Is that right, Adam? Okay. Excited to have you both here. The first question that I'm just going to jump right into today is really about the hype in AI. Is it hype or is it help? So one of the things that we've seen is marketers are adopting AI pretty quickly. One study done said that 67% of marketers are already using AI for their SEO and their content. And about 78% of them are satisfied with the results. We have seen that in the podcast. A lot of agencies are using it for their content, but there's a question of whether or not that's really what they should be doing. I think some agencies have leaned heavily back into their manual writing rather than AI content because they're questioning whether or not the quality is where it needs to be. So I'm just going to ask the question here: is AI helping or hurting the content for marketers right now?
I'm on the helping side of things for sure. I don't think AI is ever going to be great at coming up with good original content, but it's killer at editing and cleaning up and just streamlining the editorial process in general. I'm a journalist by education. I worked at the newspaper at the university I went to, and this was before blogs or really a lot of SEO stuff was even popular. And I struggled with all of my writer friends trying to figure out, is there an easier way to get people to write better? Because nobody has problems coming up with original ideas for content. And AI is good at that too, like idea generation. Use it for sure. But coming up with the originality and putting a human spin to the content, I haven't seen AI yet that can do that. And again, I'm no expert on AI. Brandon might see it a lot differently. And I really don't spend a whole lot of time doing content writing myself. Even though I run a huge content network, most of my clients are supplying their own content to us. And I just use AI to review all the content, point out mistakes or inaccuracies or grammatical errors. And since I run a news network, I have to make sure it's factually correct to the best of my ability, and AI has accelerated that capacity for us by 10 times. Fact checking using AI is so much easier. But again, generating the good, unique, useful content, I haven't seen AI do a very good job at that.
Have you seen any change in the quality of the content that's come into your network over the past couple of years since AI has been so quickly adopted?
Yeah. And I don't know if that's a function of where the content is being generated, because just to be blunt and transparent, the cheapest content used to be India or Pakistan, or the Philippines. You could just get really inexpensive fairly good quality, good enough to publish on a low tier blog. And that moves the needle for SEO in a lot of things. But high quality, like Forbes or Inc. level content, you got to hire like really master's level degrees type of people, no matter what, no matter when. Today or 10 years ago, it's the higher the quality you need it to be, the less AI is going to be involved in generating it.
Yeah, no, definitely. I agree that AI is definitely very helpful. And if you're not embracing it, you're missing out, but it doesn't do everything. And if you need good, really good quality content, I mean, it's okay. It's a good starting point. It also comes down to those prompts, how well you prompt it, because a lot of people just say, hey, write me a blog post about this topic, and it's so generic, and it's going to just spit out the same content that everyone else is asking it, or it might tweak it a little bit, but trying to really personalize it. Like I like to start off with maybe making outlines and then restructuring it and try to like really make sure that outline is what we're looking for, and then having them or AI help write the content, then having editors or humans review it, edit it, make sure it's accurate, because don't want to put out any misinformation, especially with like stuff like health, wellness, or like anything with financial. You can't be putting out anything incorrect. Google really scrutinizes those to make sure that all the content is accurate, and AI is not accurate with those AI hallucinations. And I've seen tests where people will just spit out 20 blog posts a week and they'll start ranking, but eventually they start to drop down because it's all low quality content. They're not editing it. And I'd say if you just stick with quality over quantity and really focus on putting out a couple of good quality pieces instead of just trying to use AI to pump out a bunch of mediocre content, that's the best strategy. But a lot of people just use it to just pump out as much content as they can.
Now, I know I'm a little early to the game here, but we hung some stockings yesterday, and we were trying to get the math just right on the spacing. And it was funny because we're churning in our heads trying to get it done. And we're like, I know I could just ask AI to just tell me the spacing for all these things, give it the exact inches. And I didn't, because I wanted to use my brain on just the thought of keeping myself functional. And I'm thinking about Brandon, like you said, with the prompts. And I think that's a really fascinating approach to it, because it's true that most people are just using it to create content and maybe giving it a paragraph or 10 paragraphs or a few paragraphs and pages of content to crawl through with a simple guide. But adding a layer of like set prompts that give it unique approaches that are based on like the company, the personality of like the marketing team, and how they're trying to approach it seems like the best way to keep this really helping rather than hurting, because in some way you probably degrade your quality if you just keep guessing, and then the least path of resistance is pretty much what most of us go to, right? Like you're just going to make it easy on yourself. How is your company, and Adam, if you have any insight on this too, how are you guys approaching those prompts in a way that is strategic, that's continuously optimized to make the company better, and not just setting them in place and just running through it as if that's the process for everyone? Because I think that customization is where we're going to be differentiating nowadays, when everyone can create simple content easily.
Gotta see what the AI spits out, and then so if like I have it writing some content and I notice that it keeps adding emojis or it's adding those dashes, I'm like, hey, let's remove these dashes, remove emojis, or write in this style format. So it's always constantly evolving and tweaking it. Even when the new models come out, sometimes the prompts that worked really well on the old one don't work as well on this new model, so I have to tweak it a little bit more and just feed it those instructions. So it's always constantly evolving. But I try to, some of my prompts are like a page long, or I'll go to, like Google tells you for like EEAT, experience, expertise, authority, and trust, what they're looking for in content. So you could just take all that knowledge that Google tells you of what they're looking for, feed it into the AI, let it learn off of what Google says, even though got to take everything with a grain of salt. Google's not going to tell you everything that they're looking for, because that's not in their best interest, but they'll give you kind of hints and lead you on what you need to do. But you got to personalize it for every client. Every business is going to be slightly different, and just really personalizing it helps make it a little bit better, the results.
Adam, what's your thought on the critical thinking of being like a functional employee or leaning too heavily on AI? What have you seen in your experiences over the past year or two with how people are using it?
I don't know anyone who's leaning too heavily on AI right now. And that may be a function of the type of people I associate with, which are
That's kind of why I gauged the question that way towards you. I was curious how your networks is that like utilizing it.
yeah, my entire network is C-suite level people. And so what they say they're doing versus what they're actually doing, just like anybody, just like Google, anybody, they're always two very different things. So all of my agency clients publicly say that they use AI to help, but what I see on the back end when I get their content from them, it looks as if AI wrote the whole thing. And so I know whatever that discrepancy is between how much they actually use it and what I get to publish, it's a wide range. And so my team and I we have to check everything that comes in. And that's always been a standard operating procedure. When you're in the news industry, you cannot trust anyone's word on if something is factually correct, whether it's AI or Trump or Biden or whoever. You just have to fact check by default. And some fact checking sources, for instance, Claude versus ChatGPT, for how they come to a conclusion about if something is accurate or not. They have two different approaches, and they sometimes come up with two different answers to the same exact question. And so that's kind of how I see my role is I don't care where the source is coming from. I don't care the LLM model. I don't care if it's Google or Elon Musk. I have to filter everything through a couple of different lenses. An AI lens, a human lens, and so that's always just been part of our standard process. And I think you can do that really effectively using AI, but since they all have different ways of coming up with their answers, and exactly like Brandon said, they're hallucinations, they try and tailor it to the user, and so it hallucinates differently. And so you ultimately have to fact check almost as a default way to get anything done.
Yeah, you start asking for sources every single time you do something just to make sure you're not throwing it off. I've had it even as I'm trying to do some background checks on like the guests that are joining the podcast, where it talks about like different credentials they have. And I'm like, I didn't see that anywhere on their profile. Where did you find that information? And it's like, oh yeah, you're right. They didn't do that. I'm like, oh my gosh, we're just making stuff up as we go. So Adam,
I had an experience with that. I did an experiment one time, and this was just last month, actually. One of my sites, and I'll just preface this by saying some of my sites get picked up in Google News. Not all of them do. But the ones that do get picked up in Google News, you can use them to seed the LLMs with information very quickly, like within hours or less. So I used one of my news websites to just publish a test article about something where I claimed that an agency owner that I was prospecting into. I published a story that said Adam and this agency owner are best friends. And we've had no previous connections whatsoever. We were never connected on LinkedIn or social. So we had no publicly available connection besides that story. And so I asked ChatGPT a couple hours later, are Adam Torkildson and this guy best friends? And you know what ChatGPT said?
Yeah, I assume it knows your best friends. I guess start doing that for like job interviews and stuff, right? Like, hey, you really the best possible employee that they could ever hire. And every time they do a search, so your name pops up.
There's a lot of ways to game the system, and SEO has kind of been like that since day one. Whether Google says it out loud or not, it's been a game.
That's a perfect introduction to our next question, which is keeping SEO authentic in an AI world. And it's complicated because results can be driven by gaming the system. But in time, as it self-corrects, some of those games tend to be punishable, I guess, by death, by website. So with so much AI-generated content online, Google has been emphasizing EAT, experience, expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness in its ranking systems. How how do you make sure your content and SEO strategies stay high quality and human? Adam, I'm curious from your perspective, because you're talking about all the content that's coming in, how you guys are crawling it. And Brandon, when you're creating content for your customers, I'll be curious about that as well. Have you seen any pushback from using AI content and it being negative right now? Or have you really adopted it and seen it work for you successfully?
Well, let me clarify what work means to me, which is that the articles get indexed. And to me, that's the end of the story. Because my job is not to make sure that the agencies that are using my sites, I kind of know what they're using them for. There's only a limited amount of things you can do with a news website where you're putting links in the content. So we all kind of know they're doing it to get organic rankings for their clients. But my end goal is just to make sure my content gets indexed as much as possible, which means the content will be seen by the search engines and the LLMs. And who is writing the content has rarely mattered when it comes to getting it indexed. At least that's what we've seen publishing almost 500,000 articles over the last 15 years. What actually matters more, and I'm going to drop some secret sauce here that I only tell my agency clients, but just based on data that I've seen over the last 15 years, this has not changed. But if you want a piece of content to get indexed, and again, that's what I care about. And I'm not saying that's what everyone has to care about, but that's just, for me as a news publisher, that's what I care about. The length of the content, and actually less is more when it comes to how much you publish, as far as the length of the text in each article. People say 500 words. I really don't care about the actual word count, but if it takes somebody more than like 5 minutes to scroll through and read, then it's lost its appeal. So however many words that happens to be varies depending on if it's like a how-to article or just like a news piece. You can read through those things in different time frames. But anyway, the word count, keep it low enough that it takes about 5 minutes to read through. And then if you have at least 3 to 4 links in the body of the article pointing to a client site, looks like my fingernail is green. Sorry. I was painting my fingernails with my nieces over the weekend. Let me hide that one. Just 3 to 4 links in the body of the content. It's crazy how much more those articles get indexed versus ones that only have like 1 link, or versus ones that have like high amounts, more than 4 or 5. And I could not tell you why that helps with indexing, but it does. Just over and over and over again. It's proved out way more often than not. 3 to 4 links, content that reads in 5 minutes, those things work to get articles indexed, if everything else is equal. And, there's lots more variables, but those are...
I think it's interesting you're taking it from like a calculation standpoint. I've seen that from like the larger agencies that we work with, that the numbers behind the content actually driving like authority to the website through guest blog posting and stuff is undeniable that it's successful. And so there's usually a fight, I'd say, from the smaller agencies that they can use a scalpel a little bit better to produce content that drives more visibility. But then there's a question of if that content visibility is going to beat out the authoritative work that that another agency's been doing. And there's kind of like a tug of war between the two on whether or not the data or, the really genuine content is going to drive more engagement. Brandon, what are you seeing?
Well, no, I agree with Adam. Like, to get it indexed, I mean, I didn't think about having more links. Usually you think more links looks a little spammy, but definitely the interlinking is very important. I'm going to have to try that out on some of my content, try to add a couple more links. But one thing that I noticed does help out with indexing, which probably sure you're doing this as well, is finding old blog posts and linking to that new one. So if you're posting on your website, you have a bunch of old existing blog posts that are indexed already, linking those to your new content pieces hopefully gets Google to crawl a little bit more. But indexing is always tricky nowadays. Google makes it a lot tougher. Indexing tools don't work as well. And But anything to get that content indexed, that's number one, because a lot of people throw content up there which they don't even realize isn't getting indexed and isn't getting crawled by Google. And they're just throwing this up there and nothing's happening. And they're like, why is it not working? And it's because Google's not finding it. And that is just such a big part of that puzzle. Is like getting it indexed is tricky. Sometimes even build backlinks to those content pieces or share it on social media to get it indexed and picked up on Twitter. Usually gets picked up pretty quick, or share it in Google Docs or Google Sheets. That way they could just see it in multiple places along with the sitemap and XML and static sitemap. But getting back to the AI content, But yeah, like the AI content though, I think it's just picking and choosing and just focusing on quality over quantity and just not just trying to go all in. But everyone is using it, and I feel like it's not going to slow down anytime soon. The more people that find it and adopt it. But I've had my writers, unfortunately, since like 4 years ago, that were using AI and charging me full price. And I'm just like, all right, now do I really need all these writers? I need editors instead of writers, because all these writers are just using AI, and I could.
That's a really interesting line there, that even the writers that you would assume would be writing manual are still using AI for their content generation.
Except for like two that, like, one was an English teacher and she prided herself on it, so I still keep her, because I'm like, yes, there's like a few, but all the other ones I'm like, I could tell it's AI. Like normally it'd take you a week to write 2 articles, now you're writing 2 articles a day or 4 articles a day. I'm like, this is not normal. And it's just, but that's what the world's come to now with AI. It's not going to disappear, and the more people that find out about it, the more people are going to tap into it. Because I still talk to so many business owners that don't even know what ChatGPT is or AI and don't use it. And once I show it to them, like, how have I not used this? I'm like, yeah, you gotta use it, because your competition is, and they're probably going to use it. And if you're not using it, you can still do the work. It just takes more time. And it's just a tool that just speeds things up like the calculator. Like doing arithmetic or doing math by hand, you can do it, but having that calculator just speeds things up a lot more when you're doing some crazy calculations.
Could I ask a question, Brandon? Do you find yourself spending time educating your clients on how to use ChatGPT in several different areas of their business besides marketing and SEO? Like, do they just ask you and you answer if they happen to ask, or is it more of like you're building it into your SOP now, where you're trying to educate them on AI across their entire business? I'm just wondering, like, do you feel obligated to teach them about it, or is it more like if they ask, you'll tell them?
I like to tell them, well, most of the stuff I do for them. So I'm like, I'm going to write the content for you. I'll write these articles, do press releases and all that stuff, so they don't have to. But I let them know, like, hey, there's AI now. For the ones that don't know about AI, let them know. And then I kind of tell them that you could do it for almost not everything, but a lot of content, because SEO is great. It gets you traffic, but I realized over the years, traffic isn't what they want. They want leads and phone calls and sales. So tell them, like, hey, this can help you with touch points. Like, start posting more on social media. Use it to help you create content. It can make images. It could write the captions. But email marketing, like, start writing emails to your, setting up like automated email responses, and just get that drip campaign where you just have those touch points to help build that trust up. And so they're not just coming to your website, but they see you everywhere. And that just helps build that trust. But a lot of business owners, they don't have time to do it. They get overwhelmed, but I just let them know that it's out there, and try to, if they're willing to and want to use it, I'll give them some tips and train them a little bit more, because then it helps what I'm doing. Now they're going to get more leads come, or close more of that traffic. Instead of just getting traffic and then having half of it leave, that bounce rate, now they're able to capture more of that traffic into their funnel with lead magnets and all those different cross promotions that we could do.
So one follow-up question to that. Do you find yourself suggesting specific AI tools? I know you have probably a bunch of different types of clients and industries, but is there one or two that you're just like always, yes, use this one and this one?
Well, in terms of the models, or
whether it's like a ChatGPT or a Claude, or there's so many AI tools that people could be using. I'm just curious.
Yeah, no, that one is too many options. I usually just let them know ChatGPT or Gemini, because Google owns Gemini, and for trying to rank on Google. Let's try to get some insights from Google's AI and see what it has to put out there. But because Gemini is nice too. I don't know, they kind of took it away, but in the past, when you ask ChatGPT and Gemini the same question, like something for SEO, like, can you help me analyze this SEO title tag? Gemini would write like a couple paragraphs at the bottom, like best practices of what they're looking for with title tags. I was like, if Google's or AI is telling us from Google, doesn't necessarily mean Google trained it. Could be learning from whatever it learned from, but it's saying this, and I would take that with a grain of salt, but at least maybe incorporate that into my strategies. So I told them Gemini is usually a little bit better for SEO insights, but ChatGPT is great for content and just the standard that everyone seems to use because it came out first.
It's an interesting question, Adam. It takes into account that a lot of agencies are hiring a lot of companies are hiring marketing agencies to act as consultants and do sometimes far more than just the marketing, and adopting other AI tools on how much that could do to grow a business, not just from like a marketing standpoint, but improving sales or improving communication or other aspects of the business if they can adopt it. It's fascinating. If you could recommend tools, that would be a cool way to expand a company far beyond just their marketing services. I do have the conversation pretty often with agencies about what tools they're using, and there are so many different tools that are popping up to show AI rankings on where people are showing up in different LLMs and how their content's performing or how often they've been cited. And that's, I don't know if that's where you were leaning with the question, but one thing I've seen is people are pulling back a bit from those tools right now because they're providing data that is very general. I guess the question was, you were asking about the different AI tools, and I've said a lot of companies have adopted them. Then a lot of them have started dropping off and using just general volume to determine how people are performing in LLMs. Have either of you used a specific tool that you thought was very valid in today's market with the data it's giving?
Yeah, I've used a couple. I almost bought one of them and integrated it into my service offering. But then the next day I found one that did the same exact thing. And it's like every day somebody tells me about a new one and they all do the exact same thing. And it doesn't help drive the needle or, push the business forward in any measurable way. So I think that was going to be a short-lived little industry.
I interviewed one once, and they were saying they can pull the data, and that's great. And then I had the question of, and then what? Was there any real way to optimize for that data? And it's really more like, almost feels like a vanity metric where you can say you're doing a good job in LLMs, but there's not necessarily a very clear way to optimize for it, other than companies have started performing more listicles and review style articles to try to improve their overall brand message across the internet. But other than that, it's all tradition. It tends to be traditional SEO tactics that are working for most companies and getting in LLMs. Are you guys seeing anything different in that way?
So best practices still majority of the same things, like good content, good coding, title tags, schema, headers, all the stuff that you should be doing anyways. Just making sure all the on-page technical SEO is all in place, and that just makes it easier for them to pick it up and understand who you are. Just like search engine spiders, just crawling your code, same thing or very similar. They're just going to be reading all your content, and just if you send the right signals, the right keywords in the right places, that's going to help them hopefully pick you up. But those third-party mentions, doing press releases, and just getting on as many third-party sites as possible, but now more branded backlinks, branded anchor text, instead of just trying to squeeze keywords in the anchor text. Now just making sure that brand name is just repeated as much as possible.
We've seen it. We actually had it requested by a fair amount of agencies in the link building that Stan Ventures does, that we do different style articles, like the listicles and comparison style articles, and not even include a link. I think there's some posts that show that like no follow links are actually just as effective for brand building in this like search everywhere optimization as do follow links. I'd be curious if you guys have had any experience with that yourselves and the link building efforts that you've been doing. Have you seen that be effective for people building brand rather than just like a general authoritative link building effort?
Oh yeah, brands, you can build those without a single link, and as long as the mention is on an authoritative enough site, And
What would
that
you
could
define
be,
as enough? I'm just curious what that vague definition is for you.
yeah, for me, it's like I've got a couple of sites that fit that bill. Like they get picked up in Google News. They have a minimum domain authority, domain rating of 30s, and they get a decent amount of organic traffic. That's enough to show up in LLMs and Google search. And I don't have the
It's
data.
about the same exact metrics that I think Stan Ventures is leaning into for those LLM style articles is DA 30 or higher and 1,000 organic traffic or higher. Like a lot of those benchmarks that you see from a lot of link building agencies are pretty well established on what's working.
Yeah, I gotta go for quality over quantity. But there's no follow links. Google's had that out forever, and like you get mentioned on Wikipedia, it's no follow back link, but that citation and mentions your name. So it's always been like citations kind of help, but now even more so because I don't think the LLMs are really looking at do follow, no follow. I think they just want to see those citations, those third-party citations mentioning you. And if you're doing the old school way of SEO with like putting keywords in those backlinks, then it's just going to read those keywords versus now trying to get the brand name mentioned, get the company name, get like myself mentioned as interviews and quotes, and again, those doesn't even need to be linked. And but for Google, I still see websites nowadays where I'm looking at my competitors or doing some analysis for a new client and looking at some of their competitors and they don't have any backlinks. I'm just like, how is this website ranking without any backlinks but citations, or they could be hiding some of these backlinks.
I think that's interesting you bring up the competitor side of things because that's actually going to transition to our next question. Well, Adam, I was even thinking about it from your perspective of like all the different AI tools and which one should you use. And it's a question of like, there's so many marketing agencies out there, and the definition of SEO in every single one of those marketing agencies is going to be different. Whether it's the authority score they want to use for the link building efforts, the traffic score, the DR instead of DA, or a million other things when it comes down to content and AI and how personalized it is. I think that I've seen a huge gap in just the someone being 5 or 10 years behind on what they consider SEO to be, but working so hard for their customers on trying to be successful. And as I'm thinking about this next question, which is all about collaboration versus competition in agency in the agency world, I'm realizing just how much benefit there is to be up to date with what you could say competitors are doing, whether it's seeing it in a report or actually just communicating with them, maybe on a business networking group or whatever else it is, to establish best practices and be as successful as you both can be, knowing that there's plenty of pie out there for everybody, assuming you're both going to do it right and being good agencies. I think there's so much opportunity. So I'm going to throw this question out there because I do think that, Adam, it's one that we talked about before the call, and Brandon, I'm curious to hear your perspective. Collaboration or competition, coming back to it, how do you view your local marketing agencies and those that are also performing work for customers maybe before they got to you? Tell me a little bit about how you navigate the marketing world that's very saturated with corporate agencies all the way down to like a single person startup.
Collaboration is always great. And instead of just being stuck by yourself on an island, talking to other people and just building off and growing. But I mean, when I worked, one of my first jobs, like one of my 5th jobs, was working at an advertising agency. And this person left their old agency and just partnered with other agencies. And that's how they built it up, is they did digital, they partnered with traditional, and they were able to get Fortune 100 clients by saying like, hey, your agency is helping them out with their TV, their radio, their print, but you're not doing anything with digital. Let's help out with their SEO, or let's do some paid ads. And
I think that's interesting. We've found that most agencies that are on the podcast aren't generating all their leads through paid ads and through SEO itself. They tend to be more established within a network that's generating opportunities just based on word of mouth referrals. Adam, how are you guys seeing it?
Well, I look at it from probably a different lens than just simply competing in marketing or not, because like we talked about briefly, I am a recovering addict. And I love bringing that up because it's allowed me to see my own weaknesses a lot better than I ever used to. And one of those weaknesses was I always used to think I was in competition with everybody else. That's kind of how I approached life in general, which has a tendency to filter into every other type of relationship you get into. The way that you see the world personally is usually the way you're going to end up seeing business or spirituality or whatever the lens may be. So when I think about the lens of life, I look at it from perspective of, is this the best way to help myself and this person get what they want? You have to do it in a way that builds both of you. Otherwise, it will come back to bite you one day. And you could call that karma or whatever you want. But the way you treat people in business or in personal life is the way that you end up getting treated in both of those things. So I guess to answer your question specifically, there's no room for competition in marketing because it's just going to kill all of us eventually. Where I think, like you said, this is so true, but it's a mindset shift for so many people. There is enough for everyone. There is abundance. But it's hard to believe that when you didn't grow up thinking that way.
One thing that comes to mind is a saying that I feel like hit me pretty hard, and I know it's pretty well known, but people don't know how much don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And I think about that with like the collaboration aspect, but also like if you're competing and your goal is to take down another agency, I would be shocked if your intent led to the best performance for your customer. Because at that point, you're just looking at another agency and trying to beat what they do instead of really focusing on what your customer needs. It's more of a competition that's just pointed in the wrong direction. Brandon, I'm curious to learn a little bit more about how your agency is generating your opportunities. Where are you seeing the most lead gen for your agency?
Usually word of mouth referrals. But I teach classes, and so that helps out a lot. Do SEO on my own website, make sure that ranks, but I do social media, do email marketing, do targeting.
Where do you teach these classes?
I teach them online and in person. So used to teach them all the time in person until the world shut down. Then I had to do them online. I realized online I could just have anybody anywhere show up instead of saying, hey, come down to Los Angeles, downtown LA at like at 3:00 in the afternoon on a Thursday. And people are like, all right, this is tough. I have to drive down there, find parking, but doing it online has opened it up. But I still like in person because that face-to-face is always nice. I do like one in-person one once a month where I'll like partner up with different venues. So I have a meetup group because I searched back in 2013 SEO classes in Los Angeles. Meetup ranked #1. I was like, let me make my own meetup group. And I built a bunch of backlinks and did some SEO on it. And that meetup group really ranks really well and grew to pretty large, like about 7,000 people in Los Angeles. So I use that to build out and market my events. But I feel like that always helps out. People love in person. Zoom works well, but in person, people just really enjoy that. So, and I like teaching those classes.
I feel like that's got to align with you, Adam, with the entrepreneurial like mindset that you have. Like going out and creating an opportunity for networking seems right in line with what you do.
Yeah, I was going to say, congrats on having that huge group, man. That's awesome. And to me, like that sounds like a bit of secret sauce right there. That sounds like a formula for success in your local area. Oh my gosh. Take that and caption it for the podcast.
I appreciate it, guys. I think that's actually it from the questions I had for you guys. The last question I like to wrap up with, though, is really just a question about the agencies that typically listen to this podcast making themselves better. What's a book that you would recommend to our listeners that you feel like has impacted you as an individual?
Who Not How by, dang, I can't remember the guy's name, but it seriously impacted the way I think about business and life all at the same time.
Dan Sullivan.
Yes. He's a smart.
I'm going to add it to my list. I haven't read that one.
He's the one that said 10x is better than 2x or something.
Yeah, he's a good one. I haven't read that book, but I will add that to my list. But yeah, there's so many good ones. I think one that's just for business is like The Power of Now. Just trying to live in the moment and not worry about the future and stress about it, like what's going to happen with AI and Google search or ChatGPT search or what's going to happen with all this stuff, and just focusing on the present or not dwelling on the past, and just trying to do what you can right now to help yourself and your clients and anyone that you're around, and just living in that moment.
I'll throw mine out there along the same lines as the compound effect, on just like those small actions you do and how they affect everything and just a compounding result. So
that reminds me of by small and simple things are great things brought to pass.
Yeah, actually the friend that recommended the compound effect to me was he was in recovery as well, and it was a book that, like, it's not about just ending things; it's about making the small changes to like figure out how to control everything and like make huge results out of things that you can control instead of just hoping for a home run all the time, right? All right, guys, this has been great. I appreciate you joining us for an episode of SEO On Air. Thank you for being here.